In this video, we're going to be replacing the exterior driver's door handle on this 2008 Acura MDX. You will have to remove your interior door panel to gain access. We're going to take out this cover up top here. There is a little tab on the top that we can push down. And if you're able to push down and pry out with your small pocket screwdriver, great. Sometimes they want to be a little bit of a pain. So we're going to use a hook tool just to pull it forward. Open that handle and pull that cover out. Now if we follow this down, we'll see this gray trim running all the way across here. This is going to be the next piece we take out. We're going to use a plastic trim tool and we're going to get underneath the top edge here and just pry that up. And now we have clips going into the door. So what we'll do is put a little pressure on the door panel with our knee, holding the door out. We can grab a hold of this piece and pull our trim piece away from the door. And we can set that aside. All right, so now we can take out our top two screws up here. Just going to be Phillips screws. And if we follow this down, right here, there'll be one more screw, Phillips. And then if we continue to follow this down, just about underneath your switches, there'll be one more screw right here. Again, another Phillips. And that's it for screws on this panel. All right, so now we've got our 4 screws out of our panel, and in this vehicle, our door panel around the perimeter is held in by push clips into the door. So what we're going to do is follow our bottom of our door panel around to the speaker area. And if you find inward in that area the back of the panel, you'll feel a little groove that you can get your fingertips and fingers behind. We're going to grab a hold of that. What I like to do at this point is put my knee against the bottom painted portion of the door and push the door open, while with my other hand pulling the door panel towards me. And I take my other hand and put it in this pocket. And what I'll do is, in a quick motion, pull the door panel towards me and off of the actual panel. All right, so at this point, our door panel is free from the clips that hold it into the door. We can wiggle it out a little bit, and we know it's free. We're being held in by this top panel. So to release this, we're going to grab it by the handle and the panel and lift straight up and back away from the door. This part here is what's holding you in at the very end that we just dealt with. From here, you can only pull your panel out so far because you still have all your electronics and cables to deal with. First thing we're going to do, we're going to disconnect our mirror cable, which will give us just a little bit more freedom to move the panel. So what we have here is an electrical connection. We're just going to disconnect that. Now you can see we've gained a little bit more freedom inside this panel to work. First thing we're going to do is disconnect our lock and door handle opener here. So we're going to use our hook tool, and we're going to work on this little area right here. We're going to get in between there, and we're going to push up and out of that clip area. Then we can take our pick tool and pry that clip up. Like so. This will come out. Now the end of this is held in here. Again, we're going to use our pick. Get between the end and the clip, pop it open, and we can pop that out. The bottom one, a little bit easier. We're going to get in between the end, pop that open. We can take that out, and here, we just lift this straight up. All right, a little tip while you're working inside door panels and speakers. You can see how your pins here are pretty sharp, and you can see how we're very close to the speaker. It looks like somebody's already done this. You don't want to puncture your speaker as you're working with your clips. So be mindful of where those clips are and where your speaker is. We'll set ours like this so we're not puncturing the speaker, and then we'll have to replace the speaker while we're in here. So then moving back to our door panel, if we start at the top and work our way down, we notice that everything comes into one harness. So we're going to disconnect just this one harness. Push that clip in. Pull it out. Now we can remove our door panel. All right, so now we're going to take off this pad or insulation here. You'll notice we have 2 clips or plugs up and top. We'll take those out. Just use a panel tool and pop those out. And then you'll notice that this doesn't move because there is some adhesive along the back. In our case, this adhesive has been removed a couple of times and it's fairly old, so some of it's sticking to the vehicle and not the foam, which is fine. Just go ahead and remove this foam, which means running your hand down along here and removing that adhesive. When you come to your electrical, just go ahead and feed that through. And when you come up top here, go ahead and feed your cables through as well. And in the case of this harness, we'll just disconnect it, unplug that, and feed that through as well, and then replug it, reconnect it. So here we can just pull our padding off, pull our plug through, reconnect our plug, pull our cables through. We can set this aside. So at this point you want to put your ignition on, just 1 or 2 clicks forward, reconnect your door panel. So go ahead and plug that back in. And you want to raise your driver's window. Up front here we have a plug. We're going to need to remove this. I'm going to use a panel tool here and just get behind it and pull forward. And what that plug does, straight in through here, gives us access to the 10mm bolt holding the front of our handle in place. Before we remove that 10mm bolt, we're going to remove this lever here, or this rod here. It's held in by this clip. It's pushed into place into the handle. So what we'll do is remove this clip. A few different ways to remove this clip. Just find whatever tool works for you. All you need to do is push the white clip off of the rod itself. We're going to use a pick tool to do that. Just pop that clip off the rod, and then we're going to come in through this hole here with a flat blade screwdriver, get between the rod and the handle and twist to pop the rod out of the handle. Now what we can do is remove that 10mm bolt. If we come in through that hole where the plug was, we can reach our 10mm bolt here. All right, now we have this metal retainer holding in our handle. What we're going to need to do is pop that retainer off of the handle itself. So we're going to slide that retainer forward and away. Now you'll have your lock cylinder separate. And now, with that retainer off, you should be able to remove our handle. We're going to start where the lock cylinder would be. I'm going to pull that forward. You'll notice a little bit of tension. What we're going to have to do is open the handle as if you were opening the door and work this back side out. Like that. And we can take the front portion, slide it to the rear a little, and rotate it out. this point, you want to take your gaskets, clean them up, and make sure they're in good condition if you're going to reuse them.
Crazy.
All right, so before you install your new handle, what you want to do is get rid of all this grease and grime. That way you'll have a cleaner, better seal with your gaskets. Our handle comes with new gaskets. If you do not have new gaskets, you want to do the same thing on your old gaskets, clean them up. If there's a lot of grease here, there's going to be a lot of grease and grime on your gaskets. So once we're done here, we'll start the reinstallation. All right, so now we can install our new handle. We have new gaskets, front and back. The installation of the handle is going to be this end first, 90 degrees to the panel, and then slowly rotate as we put it in there. This side here obviously won't go like this, so what we need to do is open the door handle and then insert that piece through, and we can release the handle. We're for the most part in position. We can go into the car, start reattaching things from the inside. All right, so to hold our handle in place while we continue to work on the lock cylinder end back here, we're going to put this clip back on and this 10mm bolt. To do that, we're going to slide this over our handle and back. You will not be able to just pull it all the way to the back and drop it on. All right, so you're going to have to pull it a little bit forward, put a little inward tension on the handle, and there'll be a sweet spot where your clip will actually go into place and slide all the way backwards nice and flush. All right, so we're going to install our 10mm bolt. We will go ahead and reinstall our lock cylinder, and along with that, the metal bracket that holds the back of the handle in place. So at this point here, we're going to try and align up the lock cylinder the best we can, and then slide our metal bracket into place. And if you look through the front, you should be able to tell if your lock cylinder is in place or not. All right, so now that you have your lock cylinder and metal bracket in place, we can go ahead and put our 10mm bolt back in. We can go ahead and install our locking rod. And for this, we're going to push up the clip, and we're going to take the rod and push it into the handle. Sometimes what I like to do here is come in with the flat screwdriver and use the door as a little leverage to push the rod into place. And then we can take the retainer for that rod, spin that down, and lock it onto that rod. Now at this point, your handle is pretty much in and done. You just want to test the functionality of it, make sure it does what it's supposed to. Open and close the door a few times and test that out. If everything looks good, we'll start reassembling. All right, we're going to reinstall our insulator here. What we're going to do first is unplug our actuator motor, and we're going to feed that wire right through the insulator. And then what we'll do is we'll take our two cables and feed that through also. And then we'll take our electrical connector, feed that through as well. With all of that done, take our two plugs in our top corners, pop those back into place. Plug in our actuator motor again. and then press back down whatever adhesive glue you still have on the back or the edges. And now we're ready to reinstall our door panel. All right, so we're going to plug in our electrical connection here. Again, taking care of not poking our speaker down below. And we're going to wait to plug in our mirror connection, because if we plug that in, we'll be forced to work with a little bit of space here. So we have two cables here, one's top, one's bottom. All right, so our white one is going to be on the bottom, the gray one's going to be on top. We're going to start by putting this into position here and spin our black lock into place. Then we can take this and slide it down into the metal bracket, locking it into place. And we'll do pretty much the same for the top here. We'll put this end in first. We'll lock it in. And then we'll take this threaded area here and match it up to the receiving threading area in here. And we'll lock that in place as well. And when you lock this down, you're going to make sure that that white tab goes underneath that metal bracket to lock it in place. All right, now we can connect our power mirror connection. Just plug that in. And from this point, we're ready to reinstall or rehang our door panel. So to hang our door panel, we're just going to lift it above this lip here. And we're going to press it down into place. Make sure it's nice and level. All right, so now that we're hinged on the top of our door panel here, we're ready to reinstall our clips around the perimeter. What I like to do is just kind of push it in towards the door. You'll feel a lot of resistance if you're not lined up. If you are lined up, it'll feel like it just kind of wants to clip into place. That's how we feel here. So now we can just give it a couple of taps around the perimeter. And to double check that we are seated, I'll put one hand or a knee on the metal of the door and just pull away from the door with the door panel. And you'll tell right away if something isn't seated. In our case, everything looks pretty good. We're in. Now we can reinstall our 4 screws. All right, top 2 screws here. You definitely don't need to over torque or over tighten these. You'll strip out the receiving end. So just snug them up. Okay, from here we can install our cover. There are 2 tabs on our cover that are going to need to go in downwards first. We'll put our cover into place, put the bottom tabs in, and then push in to clip into place. Our cover here just needs a little help with that lock to be seated up. And from here, we can reinstall our trim piece. Easiest thing to do with this trim piece is line up these tabs. And from there, you can start up here. Just give this a squeeze. Give this a squeeze. And then you can work your way across here. You're all done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.